can begin.
And you're good to go.
Thank you. Welcome to the Town of Barnstable Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. Today is April 10th, 2023. This meeting is being recorded by the Town of Barnstable and will be available on Channel 18 after this meeting has concluded. The agenda for this meeting is on the town website. We will begin by calling the roll. Chuck?
Lillian,
Here.
Hector,
I'm here.
Wendy,
Here.
Jackie. Jackie's on mute,
Jackie's on mute.
but I see her here.
Yeah, I see her.
I'll go to Chris,
Here.
Neil,
Here.
and Chuck is here. So we have a quorum.
Yes. And welcome, Betty. Let's see, we have no public comment.
I am sorry, I had to take a phone call. I'm here.
Yes, we saw your that you were here. Today we're going to discuss a couple of things, but we have DPW with us, I believe, to talk about their 24 budget.
They're not here yet. I
They're
just
not
reached
here
out
yet.
to them. Waiting to hear back from them.
Okay,
Did they confirm for the meeting, Mark?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, while we're waiting, I just want to say, Mark and the school people have been just enormously helpful in answering just a myriad of questions I had, and I really want to thank them for that. It's been just awesome. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, Neil.
Does it make any sense? Well, we have a little break in the action, Madam Chair, for Mark just to update us on the presentations to the town council last Thursday and the change in the financing regarding the need for the debt exclusion.
That probably takes too long, but if you watched it, it was just an excellent presentation. And the council was so engaged in their comments and questions afterward. So they're getting on board, and something's going to happen.
Yeah, I'd be happy to provide a few brief comments on that if you want. I can.
Yeah.
Just
So
a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so I've got the presentation I was focusing on was the funding update, fiscal 24 to 28 for the CWMP. And I guess, I didn't have a chance to listen to the presentation, but I've got page 2 of the document, the summary open. And I guess what I was just curious to get was an explanation of what has changed here.
Certainly. So, yeah, since we last updated to town council back in January, it was prior to the release of the state's budget.
Right.
Subsequent to that meeting, the governor released a version of the budget. Of course, this is all subject to legislative approval still, but she released the budget, which included a significant increase in Chapter 70 funding for education for the town of Barnstable. $6 million increase in total. We were originally estimating that to be less than $1 million. It came in significantly higher.
Wow. Can I just interject a question, Mark? So this was an increase in Chapter 70 funding for the state districts across the state, and Barnstable got more than its fair share. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there's been a significant, I think somebody mentioned it earlier this evening, there's been a significant investment in public education across the state of Massachusetts with what's known as the Student Opportunity Act.
Right.
And that has increased required spending, and not only in base categories of spending for children enrolled at the pre-K level, K level, grades through 6 and so forth, but there's incremental spending that we must incur as a community based on certain additional characteristics of the student population, and that includes additional spending for English learners, additional spending for economically disadvantaged.
Right, right. And we touched on some of those topics in the last meeting. Okay, so 6 million increase for Barnstable, largest in the state.
Well, it's one of the largest percentage increases in the state. As Neil pointed out to me in an email a couple of days ago, 2 other communities have a larger percentage increase than Barnstable, but I'll qualify that statement by saying they're school districts with less than 360 students in them.
Okay.
So we're by far we're a significant school district with over 5,000 students enrolled. One of those other ones had less than 100 students. The tiny town of Hancock, Massachusetts, one of my favorites, by the way, out in Western Mass, where Jiminy Peak Ski Resort is located. But they have 86 kids, 86 kids in a school district. That's it. But yeah, it was a significant increase. And so what happened is it ended up resulting in total general fund revenue growth next year of $13 million for the town of Barnstable. When we reduce that $13 million by the increase in our fixed costs, which is $3 million, we're left with $10 million of revenue growth. With the 60-40 revenue sharing agreement that is in place between the municipal operations and school operations, $6 million goes to the school, $4 million goes to the municipal operations. Now, the $6 million revenue growth for the school, coincidentally, is the same amount of increase in Chapter 78, $6 million. That just happened to be a coincidence. So one way to look at the operating budgets for the fiscal year 24, for the school operating budget anyways, is that the $6 million budget increase that the school committee approved last week is being entirely covered by that increase in Chapter 78, meaning no property tax support increase needs to go to the school department next year. So they're going to basically the same amount of tax support is going to fund education next year as it did in fiscal year 23. So as far as the $4 million for municipal operations goes, we're looking at about a $2 million operating budget increase for the entire municipal operating budget, which leaves us with $2 million of leftover revenue growth. And we're going to include a proposal in the upcoming budget submission the town manager provides to the town council that we direct that to the capital program. And more specifically, if we direct it to the CWMP, it postpones the need for a debt exclusion override for a couple of years.
The $2 million by itself.
Well, it's not just $2 million. We're also dedicating $750,000 of additional property tax growth over the next 5-year period. So there's another $750,000 a year. Plus, we've made a couple of fine-tunements to our projections, which included some increase in investment earnings because we're earning more money on our cash deposits these days. And secondly, we revised our borrowing strategy to include combining our design bonds with construction bonds and borrowing that money together. If we do this, we can amortize those design bonds over a longer period of time, which will provide more cash flow. And so before we were amortizing design, we had over $12.5 million of design bonds that we need to borrow for. And typically design only allows you to amortize bonds over a 5-year period. That's a big loan payment over a 5-year period. If we do a short-term financing strategy for a year, then combine it with the construction appropriations that are coming forward and borrow them together, we can stretch that out over a longer period of time, providing a better cash flow for the program.
Right.
That's a summary of what, the infusion of new revenue, investment earnings, property taxes, and the restructuring of our borrowing strategy provides us a couple of more years. And between now and then, more things could happen, positive things could happen, which would could postpone a debt exclusion override again. We did submit the Centerville Village Sewer Expansion Project, also known as Park City Wind. This is the line that's going up through Centerville. We
Right.
did submit that an application for a congressionally directed spending request. And so that's a direct request from the federal government to provide grant.
What agency does that go to?
That went to Senator Warren's office.
Ah. And how big a request was that?
For the entire project, $31 million. That's the
Wow.
FY24 project that's in the
Right.
CIP that you're looking at.
Right.
We submitted that project for directed spending requests from Congress.
So the theory is that if it's approved, the town will get the 31 million directly from the federal government with no intercession by the
Yep.
state, which
Correct.
is usually the case with federal infrastructure money.
Yep.
Now,
The application, there's no guarantee that we'll get it.
right,
but letting you
and that's
know.
my next question. So have we submitted these before? Or have we discussed with Warren's staff?
Yeah,
What,
we've
you know,
submitted them
how would you
before.
ballpark the odds?
Yeah, we've submitted them before.
Yeah. And have we succeeded before?
I think the Barnstable Harbor bulkhead replacement 15, 20 years ago was
Okay.
successful.
Okay. Well, that's great. I've not heard of that before, but you know, I guess I wonder. There's probably a lot of competition for funds like that. So, but just to return to the pushing out of the debt exclusion. So we get $2 million. And then an additional 750,000 from what was the source of that again?
New property tax growth. That was
Ah.
the previous commitment we had made last year. We had a 5-year plan to provide $750,000 of our new property tax growth to the capital program.
Ah,
And so this will be the second year of that commitment, FY24. We started
okay.
FY23.
Okay. So the sum of those two figures are 2.75 million. How does that reduce does that cover the amortization of the debt for the next couple of years? Because before we said that we had a shortfall.
Right. Yeah, it covers
we
the debt
needed.
service payments for the 24 and 25 and 26 projects.
Right. And can we see that in this presentation? There's the 5-year estimated project costs. No, the loan payments.
Slide 14.
Slide 14. Okay, so should we focus on the bottom line? In fiscal 2026, negative $530,000. That's what we can cover through this.
Yeah, that's what our commitments start exceeding our resources in fiscal year 26, but we can cover those excess commitments in 26 and 27. It's when the projects for FY27 CIP hit the books starting in fiscal year 28. Then we start growing to 1.4, 2.6 the following year. Our commitments are getting too large. They're exceeding our resources to the point where we're going to need additional funding. We got to find funding in those years subsequent to those years, and that would be the new trigger for a debt exclusion, absent some other event like what just happened occurring again.
Okay. And the $1,560,000 in fiscal 26 and 27 that show us shortfalls now, how will we fund those?
Through the program resource, the current program resources and fund balance that we have. So we're we're carrying a fund balance that we can dip into slightly, but I need to have an entire year's worth of operating budget and debt service reserved in a fund balance to appropriate for the following fiscal year's budget. So we get that the reserve level gets too low in order to provide any assistance towards paying for committed or long-term debt service.
Yeah, yeah.
Reoccurring cost. It's a reoccurring cost that you have to pay.
Yep.
So what you're saying, without saying it directly, is that this cash flow projection page would be updated with additional resources once those become available?
Yeah, as we go
Okay.
through and identify them. Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's good news in terms of not having to go to the voters with a debt exclusion.
Well, we have for a couple of years. Mark, while we're waiting for DPW, do you want to begin talking about the general fund and the enterprise funds? Did that take too long?
Yeah, that's going to be
Yeah, okay.
I think we were going to save that for the next meeting, but I just wanted to, update you on, I know it's on the agenda for general fund revenue projections and fixed costs. And as far as general fund revenue projections go, my update is that we got that influx of Chapter 78, which is going to allow us to provide or redirect more property tax resources to the capital side of the program. The municipal operating budget, again, is projected to come in at about a $2 million increase. So we have $2 million remaining that we can redirect to another area of our operations or capital program. So we selected the capital program. As far as
Are we still looking at a approximately $197 million for revenue? Does that include the 6 million? Yeah, I think so. You had given us earlier the projections for 24. And I think that the total revenue was 197.
it's about 196. Yep.
196. Okay.
Yep. That includes the Chapter 78.
Right. Okay.
And so on the fixed cost side of things, we did get some favorable news in from the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. They recently had their excess and deficiency certified, which is like their free cash for the town's free cash. And it was above what they can legally keep in an excess and deficiency account. So they're going to have to refund that to the member communities that participate in that regional school district. And so we just received notice from them that Barnstable will be getting $123,000 credit to our first quarter assessment.
Oh, good.
24. So that reduces the budget that we're going to have to establish for the regional school district's assessment next year. Their assessment is going to result in being about $249,000 less than this year's assessment.
Wow, nice.
5% less, yes.
That's
So that was
very
good news. Let's see a couple of other changes. Employee health insurance, we had to increase our estimate for health insurance because with the school department adding new positions in their budget proposal, along with the new positions come employee benefits and in particular health insurance. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts pays for all the retirement costs associated with professional educators. And so there's no retirement cost to the town of Barnstable as a result of any position that ends up qualifying to be part of the Mass Teachers Retirement System, because the state covers that. So, but we do have to provide a projection for health insurance for the new positions. So that went up a little bit. Then, let's see.
Let's see, I did a rough draft on the fixed costs, and for life insurance, I had it going up about 42% from
Yeah, life insurance is
12 to 17 or something like that.
yeah, it's an immaterial amount of money
Yeah,
overall as
right, right.
budget. It costs us we have to provide a $2,000 life insurance premium
Yeah,
for every
okay,
individual. And it costs us about 26 cents a week per
okay,
employee.
yeah.
And it's not a lot of money, but it was a large percentage increase because we had been underfunding it. So we just want to get the budget to where it should be.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are the only significant changes to what I originally provided you. And I think I gave you all the updated version
yeah,
of
you
the
did.
revenue projection or the general fund budget projection. Because you had seen $196 million total
Right,
revenue figure, so that's it.
yeah.
That's the latest projection.
Well, and when I drafted the fixed costs report, I'm using 64.8 million for the fixed costs for 24. Is there any change?
I'll let you know.
I'm sorry?
I'll have to get back to you on that and let you know just to make sure.
Okay, okay,
It's about $64 million.
yeah.
Can I ask a question about the 78 money again?
Sure.
Yeah, I just know when you brought it up at the town council in here, and I know Paula Schnapp had asked, the 78 is based on the student enrollment, right? In terms of English language, income, that kind of thing, right? So are there any strings attached to it? It sounds like it comes in and we can do what we want with it. Is that, I'm trying to get my head, because she asked the question, are there other things that maybe come with this that we have a burden as a town to cover that are associated with having this student population that makes it more challenging to educate?
Yeah. No,
Can you clarify that part? Because I still am not clear on that. And the way you talked about, well, luckily they were both 6 million. If you could, maybe I'm just ignorant. That's why, again, I'm listening to you guys to try to become less ignorant. But if you could review that one more time, because Paula seemed like she was a little confused too.
No, it's a good question. And there are no strings attached. I mean, like I said at the council meeting, the money, Chapter 70 money goes to the community. It doesn't go directly to the school department of a community, and then they get to spend it the way they want to spend it. It becomes part of a general fund revenue source like property taxes and other local receipts. And then the community decides how to divvy up all of that between the various operations. So there are no strings attached. However, the Department of Education is asking school departments to start preparing reports on an annual basis in regards to what initiatives are they putting in place to deal with specifically increasing EL populations, increasing economically disadvantaged populations. And you'll see in our school department's approved budget by the school committee that many of the cost increases that they've highlighted and additional spending that they've highlighted are directly attributable to those populations, helping educate those populations. So there's a nice tie to what the school department's budget increase is this year with what the Department of Education is looking for from school districts to report. But there are no strings attached where it says, hey, Barnstable, we gave you $6 million more this year. You need to make sure that the school department budget is $6 million more than last year. No requirement like that.
What is the total Chapter 78 to Barnstable next year?
24.
0.8.
Yep, 24,752,053.
Okay. And this is, every year we get a certain amount of Chapter 78, year in, year out. And as you say,
it's
it's
base aid for next year. So next year we can expect another $24.8 million. And
okay.
for additional funding that may come our way as a result of the continued implementation of the Student Opportunity Act. We're halfway through it.
Yeah,
Next year will be year 4 of 6. And I tell you, the big things that changed that caused the increase this year was we had a slight population increase overall, 109 students, not significant. But the increases in the student population in those incremental categories, ELs and economically disadvantaged, significantly went up, which required us to spend more money on education. But I want to point out, we get $25 million in Chapter 78. Our school budget is $83 million, significantly more than what we get in Chapter 78. So the state looks at that, they say, hey, look, we know every additional dollar we give you in Chapter 78 isn't going to necessarily go to the school department. We get that.
right.
Especially when you're in a community like Barnstable that spends, that only receives about 25% of its operating budget, or 33, about 25% of its operating budget, maybe closer to 30% of its operating budget from Chapter 78. Property taxes provide the rest.
Right.
School department. So it's in a communities who are almost entirely funded by Chapter 78. And there are some out there that get like 90% of their funding from Chapter 78.
Really?
Yeah, there's some very, and these are communities that have that aren't as property wealth as that the Cape communities have. And go to that website, that DESE website Neil mentioned. You can take a look at what the Chapter 78 required spending is. For some communities, it reaches that point where it's almost entirely funded by Chapter 78. If you're one of those communities and you're getting additional Chapter 78 every year, it's likely going to go to the school department because you have minimum spending requirements that you have to meet. No other operation for a city or town has these required spending amounts set by law than public education. We have to spend X amount of dollars every year on public education.
Now, Mark, is
you have
it
to report on that every year.
Is it accurate to say that if we had not received the increase we did in 78, we'd be looking at the override this fall? Because I thought until your briefing, I was kind of, pleasantly surprised, but shocked almost. I thought we were on the path.
Absolutely, we would be. We didn't get that because we weren't projecting that kind of increase in Chapter 78. So we'd be right, we'd be looking for the debt exclusion override if we wanted to do that $132 million of capital projects in fiscal year 25. As the town manager mentioned Thursday night, we've never brought capital projects forward for an appropriation without knowing what the funding source is to pay the debt service back. We've never done that. And so we would want to know whether or not we're going to have additional taxes to provide those annual loan payments for those capital projects before we bring them forward for an appropriation.
But we were about to do that. I mean, they're in the book. And if we hadn't got the 78, then that's where we were.
No,
right?
Those appropriations haven't come before the town council yet. They won't come until next year.
For the fiscal 25, yeah.
For 25, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to ask maybe Neil, the website that Mark just referred to where you can get detail on Chapter 70, mass.gov, what is the rest of it?
DESE. I can send you a link.
Yeah,
A whole Google link.
Yeah, would you send me that link? I'd like to explore that.
I'll send it to everybody.
Right. And Mark, you said that we weren't expecting the increase in Chapter 78, but we doubtless knew about the changes in the demographics of the increased school population. We had a sense, didn't we, that there were X percent were economically disadvantaged and English language learners and such. We knew that, but we didn't know what the dollars would follow from those data.
Yeah, we didn't know that we had that kind of increase in those subcategories in student population.
Yeah.
Because we had prepared those estimates before even those October 1st enrollments were received and analyzed by the Department of Education.
Ah,
We didn't have that information when we prepared our original Chapter 70 projection.
so those data go right, that they're prepared by the state. We don't gather the data on the.
But we gather the data,
Uh-huh.
and submit it to the state of Massachusetts, but the state of Massachusetts uses, I don't know, I can't remember exactly where they get the information from to determine who's economically disadvantaged, but it's like
Right.
105% of the federal poverty level.
Right.
And they get the information regarding students from certain other databases and other state agencies, not from the Barnstable Public Schools.
Okay.
So, I mean, if that child is, that family of that child is on some kind of public assistance program with another state agency, then they're identified
Yeah.
as economically disadvantaged and so forth.
Yeah. Or
It's
they
not
get
data
info.
that we can track because we don't do income, analysis or data collection
Right.
for all of our families in the Barnstable Public School System.
Right. So they probably get a lot of their data from DOR, from people's tax filings,
Perhaps that could be.
income data.
Yeah, actually, from what I understand of it, and so take this with a caveat, there were three things that impacted the big increase this year. One is the state allocated about 12% more to Chapter 70. And it will continue to go up, I think, under the current administration, per what they are saying.
Uh-huh.
The second thing is economically disadvantaged or low income, so to speak, which is, as Mark said, 100 and something percent of the poverty level. That actually stayed the same from last year, this year, but the state's actually using data from a year ago. As an addition to, they use their estimates of the student population from a year ago. And that student population includes both those children attending Barnstable schools and those children who are in Barnstable who may go to schools elsewhere or even be homeschooled. So they used, for instance, for 2024, 5,302 students, I think it was. There's only 4,800 in the school today. So you've got a 400 student thing where that money is actually going to places like the regional assessments and the charters, things of that nature. The third thing is the population of English language learners went up 35% last year. That was a huge hit. And 78% of those people are economically disadvantaged, according to the school. And then the third thing is, as Mark said earlier, the state has changed the calculations they're using starting 3 years ago to be implemented over 6 years, which is increasing the amount that goes to people who aren't just average students, but are economically disadvantaged. They add an extra to what they call a foundation budget, how much you must spend. They add over $6,200 for every economically disadvantaged student.
Wow.
Given the extra resources they believe are needed to educate those students. They give an extra $2,790, I guess, on average for every English language speaker. And they give $32,000 for every student with disabilities. So when
32,000?
32,000 on average.
Uh-huh.
That population, by the way, has not gone up at all in Barnstable over the last several years. It's pretty much flat at 850. So when you add all those things together, I think that's what's caused the 32% increase in funding for Barnstable this year, as far as I can calculate.
Okay. That's very helpful.
And I think it's something that we can build on to try to better understand next year's allocation, because that's becoming a large number, obviously, as a percentage of the school funding.
I have a follow-up question for you, Neil. Do you have any idea how much of that $24 million that we're getting from Chapter 70 is attributable to the Student Opportunity Act?
Yeah, that's the third piece. They changed the calculations in 2019. And that is a little bit, to me, a black box as to what they changed and how fast they're changing it. Maybe, and I haven't figured that out yet. But I think that's a significant, because if you look back last year, the amount of money that went in Chapter 70 went up $5.5 million. Over the last 2 years, the amount of Chapter 70 money that's, since they changed the Chapter 70 calculations, Barnstable is getting about twice as much as it did 3 years ago. It's a big
Oh.
piece.
Yeah.
Well,
So we should ultimately be able to figure out what the Student Opportunity Act is adding to our Chapter 70 revenue.
I think that'd be a good thing to figure out. I haven't, in the time that I spent on it, I haven't been able to figure it out yet.
So if I could just follow up Neil's comments there, along these lines of following, if we took our foundation enrollment from last year and plugged that into the FY24 formula that they're using, our foundation budget would have gone up $5.5 million instead of $8.9 million. The increases as a result, the increases from the changing demographics and the overall increase in student population of 109 contributed another $3.5 million increase in required spending. So it's a combination of so the inflationary increases is $5.5 million as a result of the changing in those spending rates that Neil mentioned required under the Student Opportunity Act. Another $3.5 million is a result of the changing demographics. So we can take what we'll do next year is we'll take the FY24 foundation enrollment, assume that to be the same for FY25 initially. We'll plug it into the formula, assuming with an assumption as to what those inflationary rate increases will be again. And we think we have a pretty good idea of what those are because they're implementing them over a 6-year period. And that'll give us a baseline for next year. And I would expect about another $5.5 million increase in required spending. Our local contribution is going to increase probably another $3 million like it did this year. So we could be seeing $2.5 million in minimum state aid increases next year if our enrollment stays the same.
Do you have any idea on how big the state pot is going to be? That went up, 10, 15% this year.
Yeah, and it's a great point because that's another factor in implementing this is the state has to have the money and it has to get through the legislative process. They haven't acted on this budget yet. We got all this money and everybody's real happy about all this money, but they haven't finalized their budget yet. But looking at the financial condition that the state's in this year, this should get approved. We're highly confident that this will get passed. We're highly confident that the legislature will adopt a budget that is equal, maybe even better than the governor's budget proposal. There always seems to be, something added to the House and Senate budget up and beyond the governor's budget. So we're very confident that this will pass, but who knows what could happen next year and whether or not they're going to be able to fully implement the Student Opportunity Act in their planned time frame. They've done Chapter 70 reform before. They have run into fiscal problems where they had to extend the implementation of the reform due to financial difficulties. That could happen again here.
Sure.
No guarantee.
Yeah, and I think that's the real, and especially with inflation, it's having a plan B really kind of pops out as to the state subsidies for this, which include federal. I mean, there's like $2 million worth of school lunches that show up, not in the school budget, but in education.
Yeah,
for
and they are fully,
Sorry?
the state has has provided the funding to make sure that every student in Massachusetts gets a free lunch.
Yeah, it's the amount of money coming from non-local taxpayers doesn't equal what the local taxpayers are paying, but it's a
Correct.
huge amount of money. And if any of it went away, things are going to get real tight, it seems to me.
That's right. Generally speaking, state budgets allocate 50% for education. And that would be K through 12, community colleges and universities. So education in general takes a huge amount of the state fiscal policy. I mean, the appropriation is enormous. And you're right, if we have a recession and we contract the revenue, we're all going to have to tighten our belts a little bit.
I think the other thing that struck me, and I don't have any, I'll look forward to the group's ideas as we go through the operating budget sections and all that, is Barnstable has a clearly increasing ELL population that is, it's now 21% of the entire school population. I mean, it makes huge differences. When I asked through Mark, what's the wisdom in terms of how long does it take for an ELL student to basically graduate from that special education extras? The state targets 6 years, assuming the schools have a very good curriculum, are doing everything right. So this is not like a short-term problem or challenge, excuse me.
Yeah.
Can I just interject, Mark? Can somebody text Dan Santos?
I
And
was just going to say, I'm in touch with Dan. He has internet connection problems. I don't think he's going to be able to join us tonight. We're going to have to
Okay.
okay,
That,
so
that being the case, why don't we take up the CIP report?
okay,
Okay.
all right. So am I going to need to put the report up on the screen?
Yes, because
Okay,
for
Okay.
discussion and
okay. So
any editing that Chuck would like to make at this point.
no, Chuck's all done.
Not nice.
He's already,
Be nice to Chuck. He thought
I
he
am
was doing
nice
us a
to Chuck.
favor.
Don't forget, he gave input that wasn't when there was a quorum. And so that actually, I don't think violates does it? As I read the rules.
No, he gave input when we didn't have an official meeting. And we
I think what Chuck,
can't discuss this.
I think what Chuck gave you was fine because there wasn't a deliberation going back and forth. He
Right.
just,
Right.
You
Right.
know, I tend to err on the side of caution.
Right.
Just in case.
Right. Okay. So I need to log off and come back in on my laptop. I'm on my iPad now. So let me drop off and let me try to log on and see what happens. I'll probably get feedback or something. Okay. All right. I'm going to sign off here and I'll be right back.
hold on, Hector.
Yeah.
I think I can pull it up on my screen.
But if there's any changes that we need to make, I'm the scribe. So,
Okay.
okay. So I'm going to click join meeting.
We certainly don't. We
I'm gonna
don't want
sign
to
off of
cramp your
this one.
style there.
Be
Hector.
right back. unmute, start video. There we go. Okay. Get a slightly different perspective of my son-in-law's office that I'm sitting in. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. Should I do that, Mark?
You have,
Go to
I
the
think it's
CI
on.
feedback report. Okay, can people see that?
Yep.
Okay. So just a comment on Chuck's editorial changes. He made some punctuation and some other slight word changes. I didn't accept all of them, but I thought it was non-substantive. But since Chuck went to the trouble of sending them to me, I thought I'd incorporate them. So the version that we're looking now should be dated, if you're looking at your own computer, should be dated April 8th, and it's labeled final. So with
Excuse
that,
me?
Although it says April 10th on the cover page, right?
Yeah,
no, the file name, yeah, it says April 10th on the cover page, but
Okay,
the
got
file
it.
name should say 8
Yep.
April. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess I would just throw it open. To me, I think we've gone over this in a lot of detail, and I'd be interested in any comments, and then I would propose that we put it to a vote.
well, I don't have any comments on the introduction and methodology. Does anybody else? Where are you going?
Well,
Okay. No, that looks good to me. How about anybody else? Any changes?
I think it all looks good since we went over it at the last meeting.
We did.
Yeah.
Nothing's been changed.
no,
Okay, you're on page 3 now? Yeah, there you go.
yeah, yep,
Nothing was changed here.
no,
The,
it's this entire document is essentially what we had at the last.
yeah,
the
these are
last,
all the
CW.
same.
Yeah.
The only real changes I saw were the CWMP,
Mhm.
and I thought you did a good job there.
Good.
You consolidated all our suggestions.
Yes, I tried to do
Yeah,
that.
so they're,
Yes.
I don't have any problem. Anybody have any changes? Okay. All that looks good. How about are we moving on to general fund now?
We can.
Yeah. Where are Chuck's changes?
They were
Oh,
mostly
they-
in CWMP.
They were in
Yeah.
CWMP?
There were just some word changes and some punctuation edits, nothing substantive.
Okay. So we're at general fund?
Any comments here? Anyone?
No, that one looks good. There were no changes on the enterprise funds.
Yeah, the only one that I had there, Hector, that was hard to see. Again, I'll defer to Lily on this, but go back down where, so all the bullets are showing.
Yeah.
It's up to me that on the 5th bullet, you have a semicolon and an and, but we don't have anything after any of the other ones. So I would either,
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
take the semicolon out and take the and out. You don't need the and either.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would just get rid of the punctuation. I'd get rid of the,
And you don't need the period at the end of
Right.
projects, the last one. Yeah.
okay.
perfect.
All right. There are a couple of other sections in this report where we have a semicolon and an and in a list of documents, so I can make those changes just to conform to what we just did.
Okay. Where are
Yeah.
you now?
Still in enterprise funds. Any comments on, anybody on the committee have comments on the enterprise fund section?
No.
Hearing none, move to the
So
five-year
then we're on
plan
the
section.
5-year plan.
So I just have a editorial question. The shading here, I didn't recall that we had that before. Do people like that shading?
No,
Do we need it?
no,
Where did, Lillian, did you have that in your original?
no, I don't have any shading on mine. Where did you get that?
I don't know.
Can we unshade it?
I'm gonna try. No color. Mark, do you know how to get rid of the shading here?
Let me open up the document and play with it, Hector, and I'll tell you.
Okay.
I have,
Alright.
I have a question about the 5-year plan. Do we need a hyphen between 5 and year?
That's the convention that we've used throughout the document when we have,
Okay,
we use multiple, we use either
I
a
know,
number.
I know, but
yeah.
I still have, I still want to ask the question.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be appropriate to leave that.
Hector,
Yeah,
relative to getting rid of the shading,
yeah,
if you just select the cells in Word and right click and then go to shading and choose the don't table properties, actually, excuse me.
So you go to cells,
No, go to table properties.
table properties, yeah.
okay?
And
And then
then,
go to borders and shading,
yeah,
and then click on the none.
none.
In the
At the top,
upper
Oh,
left.
top
none
left,
here.
none.
This one, yeah,
Yeah,
and then, okay. That didn't do it.
yeah, I did it here. Let's see. Let me try it on the
That took
LT.
out the lines, but it didn't take out the shading.
Yeah, let's see. I do it by table properties, cells, preferred options. Huh. Let me go. I'll send it to you if there's too many ways to make changes.
Okay,
I'll work on it and send you a step by step that I
Okay.
found works for me. The one thing just for consistency, it's truly a nit. But you have room for it on the second line where it says comprehensive wastewater plan
yeah,
in CWMP. You
yeah,
probably have room to put management in there.
Sure,
If it
because you've
makes a
got 2
difference.
lines, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll let you deal with that.
Okay.
On that, Hector, to Lillian's point, I think in the shaded area, if we have if 5 years hyphenated, it should probably be hyphenated in there.
Okay. All right.
No
So
comments?
the committee can vote to approve or not, subject to my correcting the shading. I'll do that.
Okay. Let's move to the concluding comments, in case.
Okay,
I think it looks
so I can get rid of this and the hyphen,
right.
yeah, the semicolon there. Okay,
Well, there should be going back up. Yeah, decisions needs a period after decisions.
sorry, where are you?
Number 1,
Oh, period, and
yeah,
then
a period after decisions.
since these are,
Right.
since these are sentences,
Yeah.
okay.
What needs
Okay.
to be a black period. Not a red. period.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And we have the same issue down here.
Yeah. Looking good.
Do we want a period after there? No. We want to get rid of that as well. Okay.
Right. Are there any further comments or corrections to be made to this report? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve this report?
I propose a motion to approve the report.
Is there a second to approve the report?
I second.
Seconded.
No, you can't second it, Hector.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Christopher.
It's been moved and seconded to
Boy, this is tough.
to approve the CFAC Capital Improvement Plan, April 10th, 2023. Chuck, will you please call the roll?
I will. Lillian,
Yes,
Hector,
Yes.
see, Hector, I do want your opinion. Wendy,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
and Chuck votes yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, CIP Subcommittee. Good report. Okay, let's see.
So
Mark,
I stop. I'm going to stop. Oh, thank you, Mark. Okay.
all right, and then are you going to come back in?
Yeah, am I here? Yeah.
Okay. I think that Mark said that he's going to talk to us about the general fund and enterprise funds next time. Mark, do you want to talk about the fiscal 24 fixed budget, fixed costs and general fund revenue projections? That's
Yeah, so we did that earlier this evening. I updated you on, the significant changes to what was previously submitted to the
Right.
committee, so.
Yeah, I think we got that. Does anybody have any further questions about it?
Mark, just a general question. For those of us who were on the operating budget report, some of us want to update last year. Are there documents coming at some point in the foreseeable future that we can use to update the numbers, or are they available and we should know where to go hunt for them?
Yeah, I'm putting them together for the committee.
Okay,
So you'll have something to work off of, okay?
excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else to come before the committee? So, do you think the DPW will be able to come on the 24th? I know the police are coming. Just the mechanics of what we're doing.
Yeah, I'll check with Director Santos and see if he's available for the 24th.
Okay. Will we be able to fit in DPW and police and general fund and enterprise funds? We'll
I
try.
don't know if we're gonna get through it all, but we'll,
We'll try.
yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Can we schedule a special meeting to take care of some of the?
Well, we'll take care of it as it comes. But we do need to meet with DPW and the police next time. That is critical. Because the operating budget subcommittee is starting to do its work and
Right.
they need to have those figures.
Yeah.
Chuck, is there anything else you need for the subcommittee?
No, I think between what Mark has already said he's going to get to us and those two sessions on the 24th, we should be pretty good. Some of you have actually already done your sections. I've done all the generic ones. So as soon as we have the numbers, and we are getting together before the 24th, I'm blanking on the date, but we're getting together
We're getting
before the
together
24th.
on, based on what-
19th.
the 19th?
19th. Yeah.
Do
So
you
that'll be our
still-
first
do you
meeting.
still want to
and-
do that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll call an audible based on what Mark gets us and how people feel about the other sections. If it's premature, we can just move it back. But for now, let's just keep it since we all have it on our calendars.
Okay. And you have done your generic draft and Neil has done his draft, and we've got one on fixed costs. So
Correct.
so Chris is doing DPW and police,
Correct.
right? I'm doing enterprise, and Jackie is doing general fund and CWMP.
Yeah.
That is correct.
All right. Is there anything else to come before the committee this evening?
Lillian, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to Germany on the 19th for a couple of weeks. So,
How wonderful.
yeah, well, I haven't been over there to see my son. He's come to Cape Cod, but until before COVID, so it will be fun.
Oh, have a wonderful trip.
Thank you.
Whereabouts in Germany, Wendy?
Well, my son lives in Berlin, but we're gonna fly into Munich and we might go to Budapest and then Berlin and maybe Hamburg.
Nice.
Nice.
Hamburg is fun.
Yeah.
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 There's some good jazz there.
Well, the Munich airport is marvelous.
Yes, although it was shut down as soon as I made my plane reservations. I think they had a strike.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, oh no. They do things a little differently in Europe.
Well, what they did was, Wendy is coming. We better do something.
So, Lillian, should we invite Betty to make any comments that you would like, Betty?
No, I just really appreciate being able to listen into you folks, and I've learned a lot. I'm disappointed we couldn't hear from the DPW because I think that's the linchpin of everything. And good luck to Chris in putting that piece together. I mean, they can't keep up with what they're supposed to do right now. They didn't paint the white lines on the road this year because it was too expensive. I mean, that's a safety concern. So that's why, I was asking Mark, what was the difference that made us not do the override? Are we really cutting ourselves too thin? And I just feel like we're on the razor's edge here with so many variables. But it'll be fascinating to hear from them and to see Chris's report on that. So again, I just appreciate it. You guys do an amazing amount of work, and it's been very educational for me, and it's really nice to see. Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate, one, your interest, and two, your insights.
Yeah.
And question. And we enjoy the exchange with you. Come as often as you like.
Oh, and one last thing is, in my precinct, I have the poorest of the poor, many affordable housing complexes, apartments, and I also have the richest of the rich. And many of those richest of the rich were in the Board of Assessors complaining about their taxes. And I know Mark has said that that's where the preponderance of our revenue comes from. And you may have some of these rich folks with pitchforks coming at you when their taxes go up yet again. So that's not an endless supply of money. It seems to be these second homeowners, let's do what we will with them. But it's not an endless supply, and they're people too, and they're going to react when they feel they've been pushed to a limit. So that's why I say I really, my mind goes out to you, to really kind of keep a handle on all of this and make sure we're doing it right as the town. So thank you again.
Thank you. Is there, our next meeting is April 24th, and hopefully we'll have the police and DPW. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Chuck, will you call the roll, please?
Lillian,
Here, yes.
Hector,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Jackie,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
and Chuck is yes.
Thank you all very much.